Okay, so when we talk about the dark side of personality, right? A few usual suspects always pop up. But what if I told you that classic picture we all have, it's incomplete? That there's this huge missing piece to the story. Yeah, I'm sure you've probably heard of the Dark Triad. For ages, it's been psychology's go-to model for understanding, well, some of the more malevolent personalities out there. But here's the thing. There's a problem. There's a shadow in that model, something that just doesn't quite fit. So, what is this missing fourth piece? All right, so before we can find that missing piece, we've got to map out the territory we already know. Let's start with the basics. The original Dark Trio. This is our foundation.
Okay, first up, narcissism. You probably know this one. We're talking about that over-the-top sense of self-importance, a constant, deep need for attention and admiration, and, crucially, a real lack of empathy for other people. It's basically the me trait.
Then you've got Machiavellianism. And this one, it's all about strategic manipulation. Think of someone who sees the world like a giant chessboard, and everyone else, they're just pawns to be moved around for personal gain. There's this cynical, totally calculated dismissal of anything like morality.
And number 3, rounding out the trio, is psychopathy. This one's defined by a serious lack of empathy or remorse, a lot of impulsivity, and antisocial behavior. Now, here's a really key point, so hang on to this. For a psychopath, aggression is almost always instrumental. It's just a tool, a way to get what they want.
So there it is. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. The Dark Triad. Seems like a pretty neat and tidy model, right? Well, not exactly. Turns out there's a shadow lurking in this model, a huge, unanswered question that it just can't seem to explain. And here's the question. What about cruelty just for the sake of being cruel? I mean, not as a tool to get something, not for any kind of personal gain, but because the cruelty itself is the entire point. So researchers started noticing this. They realized the model was missing something absolutely crucial. They were seeing this behavior, like totally unprovoked aggression, or people who seemed to genuinely enjoy watching others suffer, and it just wasn't a means to an end. For some people, the cruelty was the goal. And that brings us to the missing fourth trait. It's time to pull back the curtain and introduce sadism. What is it at its core? It's exactly this, the enjoyment of cruelty. That's it. Simple, direct, and honestly, pretty chilling. This is the motivation the old Dark Triad model just couldn't explain. So the formal term for this is subclinical sadism, and it's now officially recognized as the fourth dark trait. What it means is a tendency to actually get pleasure, real enjoyment, from either hurting people or even just watching them suffer. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. A sadist might share that lack of empathy with a psychopath, for sure, but their core motivation, totally different. It's the pleasure they get from the cruelty that truly sets them apart. And that's what often leads them to be aggressive for absolutely no reason, no provocation needed. This brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this whole explainer. We really need to understand the difference between cruelty and callousness. Look, both a psychopath and a sadist can lack empathy, and both of them might do some really cruel things. But their motivation, the why behind it all, is where they completely diverge. And this comparison just lays it all out perfectly. For the psychopath, aggression is just a tool. It's cold, it's callous, they'll hurt you to get your money or to get power or just to shut you up. It's a means to an end. But for the sadist, the aggression is the reward. Hurting people is the end goal. There's this great quote that just nails it. For a psychopath, cruelty is a stepping stone. For a sadist, it's the destination. Wow, that one really sticks with you, doesn't it? So, okay, big picture. Why does this even matter? Why add a fourth trait? Well, it's because the Dark Tetrad, it just gives us a much clearer, way more accurate picture of the dark side of personality. For one, we finally have a model that recognizes cruelty for its own sake. And that helps us understand so much more about real-world behaviors, Things like online trolling or bullying. A lot of that stuff has no tangible gain for the person doing it, right? It seems to be driven purely by the enjoyment of making someone else miserable. So yeah, the Dark Tetrad, it just completes the puzzle. So I want to leave you with this thought. Now that you see the full picture, this 4-part model, how does it change the way you look at those little acts of everyday cruelty you might see? It's definitely something to think about.